Navy SEAL, also known as Mr. Ballen, talks about a lot of strange stories, and to be frank, I just recently he became, I think, the biggest podcast on, I think, Spotify, or really any show, really, even beating like Midsummer Murders and all that kind of stuff. But not only that, this guy is making millions of dollars talking about pretty horrific stories, which is pretty interesting. It kind of goes to show you like how big the crime story market actually is. Like the true crime market is massive. But let's kind of like break down his like kind of like backstory, and then we're going to actually break down like the actual numbers that he's potentially doing just from his YouTube channel alone, right? So let's get right into the story. So this former Navy SEAL with strange stories is a podcast sensation. I can't even bloody read a title. So John Allen has the social media Midas touch. In 2020, the former Navy SEAL posted a video on TikTok about the mysterious deaths of 9 Russian hikers, known as the Dyatlov Pass incident. In the late 1950s, he then left his phone at home and went to a water park with his family. When he came back, the post had 5 million views. I literally thought there was a glitch with my phone, Allen told the Post. That viral video launched Allen's social media career, posting under the moniker Mr. Ballin. His YouTube channel has 5.4 million subscribers, and his new podcast, Strange, Dark, and Mysterious Stories, has skyrocketed to the number one spot of Spotify's true crime podcast chart. In doing so, it surpassed established hits like Crime Junkies and Murder, Mystery, and Makeup. Allen, 33, was raised outside of Boston in Quincy, Massachusetts. His dad was a journalist, but Allen wasn't initially drawn to storytelling himself. That was a husky. After graduating from high school, he didn't really have a direction and decided to join the military. He went to boot camp in December 2010 and trained to become a Navy SEAL. In 2014, he was deployed to Afghanistan, where he was nearly killed by a grenade that detonated near him. The shrapnel hit his arms and legs, according to the Patriot Ledger. I remember having the thought, this is the end of my life, Allen told the Post. Now, this is actually pretty, like, for those that ended up actually, like, looking at this is actually kind of like a cool setup for his, YouTube channel, right? He's basically just using probably a really old Mac with okay lighting, which is pretty interesting, right? Because you'd think that someone who has like 5+ million subscribers would use something like super crazy fancy. This kind of looks like he's almost doing this on like a cheap, almost like Walmart table, which is pretty cool when you really think about it. And his desk is such a mess, it's pretty funny. So he continued serving in the military until 2017, then went on to work in fundraising for veterans. Allen would regularly post to social media about his military service, but when he made the TikTok video about the incident at Dela Pass, he experienced an entirely new level of popularity. People were so into it, he said. In subsequent posts, Allen pivoted his focus from the military to mysteries and strange occurrences. As at Mr. Ballen on TikTok, he has nearly 8 million followers, while Mr. Ballen on YouTube has garnered millions of subscribers through short 15 to 20-minute videos on topics ranging from the female Hannibal Lecter to the worst medical screw up ever. I love telling stories. I love getting people's reactions to interesting stories, Allen said. His true crime podcast, which premiered last Monday, lets him spend even more time with the story. With episodes ranging from 30 to 40 minutes, the first episode focused on a witness coming forward in the 2002 case of murdered Washington State teen Rachel Burkheimer. A new original episode will run each Monday. Not only is the Mr. Ballin podcast Strange, Dark, and Mysterious Stories currently the top true crime offering on Spotify, is the second most popular podcast on the whole platform. Even to be mentioned with some of these other creators is so surreal, said Allen, a married father of three. I don't really understand how any of this happened. Now, here's the thing to really understand. If this is the second most popular podcast, that means the only person beating him, guess what, is Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is the only one beating him. Now, that's a lot of props because Joe Rogan was literally, and probably still is, the biggest podcast in the world. Okay? So, this is actually a pretty amazing thing to actually see. That you could end up becoming super massive, telling super interesting true crime stories. Now, let's actually break down the monetary side of this, right? Because I don't think people really understand just potentially how much money this guy's actually making, right? So let's go to Social Blade. Mr. Ballin storytelling for his little title logo thing, right? So he has gained 180,000 subscribers for the last 30 days. The estimated monthly earnings, right, is on the low end $13,800 per month up to $221,500 per month. Now, this is really the big figure to actually pay attention to. The amount of video views for the last 30 days. Mr. Ballin, true crime connoisseur, right, has gotten 55.364 million views in the last 30 days. Okay? This is a disgusting amount of views. And we are talking, even with super bad ad rates, that realistically, he should be making six figures minimum per month, right? Not to mention, I'm pretty certain he is very family friendly in the sense that I believe that he does no cussing inside any of his videos. I believe. He also, gives, very big warnings to people like, hey, you might find this kind of video uncomfortable or slightly disturbing, yet he still is able to get crazy amount of views. I mean, think about this, right? He has only 235 uploads, but almost a billion views. Think about that for a second. That is amazing. That is so amazing to see something like this, right? But yeah, this amount of views, no matter how bad your ad rates really are, you're pulling in a good amount of money per month. And look at this, right? He could potentially be making almost $8,000 a day, $16,000 a day, nearly $10,000 a day, $14,000 a day. It's pretty nuts how much money he's really potentially making. Now, the cool thing that I found about this, about his YouTube channel, his growth, is that it's consistently pretty much growing, right? So, for example, back in early 2020, he had only 16,877 video views, right? Then, in February, 463,000 views. Then he only got 99,000 views in March. Then he got 544,000 video views in April. Then May he started to break the 1 million mark. 1,569,868 video views. And it just kept on basically growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. Now, what was interesting, right? This month, September 2020, is probably the first month that he was like, wait a minute, I could probably actually start making this into a really good living. Not just a side thing, not just something to do for fun, but wait a minute, this could be something pretty serious, right? Because depending on his ad rates at this 16 million video view a month, for different types of channels, you could be on the low end, maybe on the super low end, maybe low 20s, all the way up to over $100,000 with these amount of views alone. right? It all depends on like how much you actually get paid per view. Now, he might be more in the in between area, more like an $8 per 1,000 views, just because the type of content that he has might diminish the amount of advertisers willing to advertise on that. But because of the sheer amount of views that he's actually probably getting paid a lot of money. Another way to really view it is like take for example like a YouTuber, Sniper Wolf, right? She makes like one video every single day, but they're very family friendly. They are very engaging, right? Her ad rates are actually probably pretty well just because of how family friendly, and like no cussing, no nothing like that, nothing like maybe controversial, but because a lot of the content kind of like focuses more on like a younger audience, the amount of advertisers that have like really deep pockets might be a little bit less, right? So she's probably around the $7 to $8 per 1,000 view range as well, just because of how family friendly she is. Now she might be a little bit less just because of how young her audience might be, and MrBallen might be a little bit less just because of the type of content it actually is. I mean, some of these things are dealing with like murder and serial killers and all that kind of stuff, right? It's true crime, right? But you never know, right? Because there might be maybe let's say like a lawyer wanting to advertise their services on his channel because it deals with a lot of crime, right? So who knows? Maybe he actually has amazing ad rates. All I'm saying is that because he's making so many views, like he's getting so many views per month, regardless of how good his ad rates are, he is making disgusting amounts of money and he is easily a multi-millionaire. Okay? Easily. Not to mention the length of his videos. Like if you look at some of his most recent videos, they're actually close to 25 to like 35 minutes, which means he could put in a lot of ads per episode. So even if his ad rates were kind of bad, they would get boosted up, like his amount of revenue would get boosted up to a crazy amount just due to the length of video and putting in multiple ad breaks. So he could be making crazy amounts of money, right? Crazy amounts. So I think this is pretty awesome to see because you get to see someone literally just blowing up and making basically making a whole new life for himself from like social media, from YouTube, from all that kind of stuff, right? Now, if he were to ever see this, or if someone else were to ever get into his type of position very quickly, the only thing that I would really want to say is that be very, not really frugal, but be pretty conservative with the amount of money that's coming in, right? Because, look, he was a former military guy, and depending on your rank in the military, your pay could actually be basically nothing, right? Like it could be pretty bad, right? So getting this crazy amount of money coming in very quickly, you really got to manage the money right so that you don't end up making a really bad choice, right? Now, the good thing about his content is that it's all evergreen. Like if you were to ever see any of his episodes, any of his videos, they are evergreen, meaning anyone at any day, at any time, at any year could basically just click any single one of his videos, watch it all the way through, and enjoy it because of how evergreen it is. It is literally something that could last forever. So, in terms of like, the phrase passive income, yeah, he can make a lot of, in quotes, passive income just because of the nature of his content. The only thing that I really want to suggest is that because of the sheer change in like massive amounts of money flowing in, and also him actually caring a lot about the military for veterans, because he was also a former veteran. Well, he still technically is a veteran, right? But like he was, since he was also injured, he's also going to probably focus some amount of funds towards other people who are injured in the military, right? It's like, as someone who has a family member who served in the military, there's like a kinship between people who serve in the military. So, really, for him, I just want him to be like completely out of debt, start automatically investing money towards his own future, to his family's future, to his kids, college funds, and all that kind of stuff. Have that all set up so that he could go super hard in telling his stories and really growing his podcast and having the time of his life without any risk, without any headaches. Because once he's able to do that, he can start funneling money into a lot of massive charities, massive causes that he really wants to do, like the Wounded Warrior Project. Like, there's a lot of things that he could do with his money if he wants to, right? As long as he's debt free, got money in the bank for like an emergency fund, has money and investments automatically going in there every single month, pays his taxes on time and all that kind of stuff, he could then allocate a lot of funds. I'm not just saying like a small amount, I'm saying like a lot of funds with zero risk to his own personal finance situation and still live an amazing life, right? Like, he could really give back to his community, the military community, if he really wants to go heavy into that, right? Not only that, with the amount of money that is coming in, he could actually hire former military guys too, or military women, or wounded warriors, right? Which I think is pretty cool, right? I really like seeing a former military guy end up recreating themselves and basically exponentially growing their situation to like an amazing place, right? Because in that article that we read, right, he mentioned that he thought that everything was basically done, that, his life is done, that he was going to die, all that kind of stuff, right? So for him to get past that and do something like this and being very productive and basically sharing really interesting stories with a lot of people, I think is pretty cool to see. So if you don't even know who he is, go check his stuff out because it's very interesting, right? Feel free to listen to it on, Spotify as well. Like, I think it's a really cool thing what he's doing, and I think it's amazing to see him do something like this. Like, I mean, again, these amount of like these numbers are pretty insane, right? Can you imagine potentially making like over $200,000 a month telling stories that you find interesting? I think that's pretty cool, right? And these are just some crazy numbers, right? But keep at it, Mr. Ballin. Your content is pretty darn amazing.